Okay, hello everyone. How are we doing this evening? Okay, that was lame. How are we doing this evening? Thank you. Okay, my name is Jill Kaur. I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at GRAC. Thank you for joining us for an intimate evening with Ouita Michel in the Lewis Apperson White Performance Hall here at the Gateway Regional Arts Center. Please make sure your cell phones are silenced and note that there is no flash photography allowed. I'll say it again, please make sure that your cell phones are silenced and there is no flash photography allowed. This is being professionally recorded, so if you are going to take a picture, please make sure you're not blocking the camera's view with your camera up like that. And like I said, no flash. So we have 3 emergency exits, the 2 exits on either side of the stage, and the double doors in the back left corner of the performance hall there. If you need to exit at any time, please wait for applause or a break in the program. Okay, who here is a fan of cooking? Yeah, you must be if you're here, right? So on April 23rd, we are offering an Appalachian cooking class where you will learn creative approaches to Appalachian heritage foods using locally or regionally sourced products with an emphasis on waste reduction in the kitchen, as well as demonstrating efficient and economical batch cooking techniques to best utilize quality, sustainably sourced ingredients. This class is completely hands-on, and you'll cook your meal under guidance by Chef Judy Gurnay, who catered our VIP event this evening, and you'll enjoy the meal afterwards. So we have an exclusive offer for you foodies out there. If you register for that class tonight at the front desk, you'll register with me at the front desk where you all came in, you will receive 15% off the price of that class. Only tonight as an exclusive offer for this evening. Okay, so I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening and the executive director of Gateway Regional Arts Center. Jordan Campbell is an award-winning actor, educator, and emerging leader in the global arts and culture sector. With a career that spans the fields of theater, education, and policy, Jordan leverages his background in acting for a wide array of creative initiatives and partners. Originally from Mount Sterling, Kentucky, he is proud to be returning home to lead the Gateway Regional Arts Center. Jordan has performed for audiences around the world, including shows on U.S. and international Broadway tours at Carnegie Hall, John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, and the Grand Ole Opry. He has also worked in film, TV, and on national commercials. He is a Helen Hayes Award nominee and has been awarded multiple Artist Fellowship grants through the National Endowment for the Arts. He most recently served as the Director of Research and Knowledge at Creative Generation, a DC-based global consultancy that works at the intersection of the arts, youth, and social justice. Jordan also worked on arts and cultural issues at the White House during the Obama administration. As an author, Jordan has written on topics ranging from mentorship models to musical theater history. Jordan holds an EDM from the Harvard Graduate School of Education and a BFA in musical theater and BA in political science from Western Kentucky University. I am also a Western Kentucky University alumni, so go Tops. Please give a warm welcome to Jordan Campbell.
Jill? Thanks, Jill. All right. How's everybody doing? Somebody stole my bio of Ouita. Oh, here it is, I think. Hold, please. Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. We are so glad that you're all here, and we're excited to have Chef Ouita Michel here with us in Mount Sterling tonight. Chef Ouita Michel has always made locally grown ingredients a priority in her cuisine, and that is why her food is so good. She and her husband, Chris, bought the Holly Hill Inn in 2000 and opened the fine dining restaurant in May 2001. Ouita's use of locally sourced foods both helps sustain bluegrass family farms and provides her customers only the freshest, best-tasting fine cuisine. The devotion to local foods is evident also at Wallace Station Deli, just outside of Midway, Windy Corner Market and Restaurant in Lexington, the Midway Bakery in Midway, and Woodford Reserve Distillery outside of Versailles, where Ouita is chef in residence. Her restaurants have purchased more than $2 million of Kentucky-grown meats, dairy products, fruits, and vegetables over the last 13 years. And Chef Ouita's work earns accolades from local and national fans of her cuisine, to wine and bourbon aficionados with her popular Wine Guild and new 1785 Bourbon Society events. She has been a James Beard Foundation Award nominee as Best Chef in the Southeast multiple times, competing against chefs in major metropolitan areas. And her restaurants are regularly featured in local and national media, such as USA Today, the San Francisco Chronicle, Southern Living, the New York Times, Travel Guide, 36 Hours, and many, many more, as you know. Ouita and Chris are both graduates of the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. Active in her community, Ouita is a member of many wonderful organizations that we'll discuss a little tonight. Slow Food USA, Congressional Coordinator of Kids in the Kitchen and Free Community Supper Programs for Midway Christian Church. She's a board member of Food Chain, a new nonprofit food incubator in Lexington, and is a member of the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence, a statewide citizen group working to improve education for Kentuckians. She, Chris, and their daughter, Willa, live in a 200-year-old cabin with an expansive garden adjacent to Holly Hill Inn. So I am so thrilled to welcome to the stage, please help me welcome James Beard nominated chef and a Kentucky culinary legend, Ouita Michel.
Thank you, Jordan.
My new friend.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Oh, well, Ouita, it's so great to have you in Mount Sterling. I always say these journeys where we're sitting here now start many, many months in the past. So I've been working with your team, and we finally found a date. She's a busy lady, so we're so glad we got her to Mount Sterling, and just so thrilled to have you. So
I'm thrilled to be here. I have a lot of friends here, and I have some family members here. And my sister-in-law and my niece are here. They're way in the back, Janie Rice and Laura Elizabeth. So it's so great to have them. Yeah.
So take us back in what I call the time machine, the Ouita Michel time machine in this respect. You are truly a Kentuckian and truly a wonderful chef. So tell us that inspiration. What is that spark that made you want to be a chef?
Well, I went to the University of Kentucky. I think some people have heard this story, but I'm an alum of the University of Kentucky, and when I was an undergraduate there, I was on the debate team. And I loved debating, and I won the national championship for the University of Kentucky in 1986. And one of the things that we did as a debate team was travel all over the country to debate tournaments. And so when we went to Chicago, we ate in Greektown, and when we went to Harvard, we ate in Indian restaurants. And there was a fabulous restaurant at Dartmouth called D'Artagnan, which was a fantastic French restaurant. And so I would save my money because we had like a $5 a day per diem. And I would starve myself. Like I would basically survived, I think, on Diet Coke and like whatever I could get from a vending machine and save up so I could go out to dinner that night in whatever city we were in. And I just really fell in love with restaurant culture. And it was interesting because a lot of the other debaters, we all developed this deep interest in wine. Okay, that's not hard to imagine for college students. But we had expensive tastes at the time. I mean, I drank, I think, Chateau Yquem, which is one of my favorite sweet wines, for the first time at 21 years old, which is a sin. Nobody should get to drink it that early in life. But we became, in the summertime, we would teach debate at these camps. So, for example, we would teach debate camp at the University of Michigan. And in the process of doing that, we started cooking for one another. We had little apartments, and so we have wine of the day where we taste a different wine every day, and we made all these elaborate meals. Then, when we go back to the University of Kentucky, we had debate dinner clubs. So when you're on the debate team, you have a partner, and then so you compete as you and I would be a team, and we might be on the UK squad, for example. Well, we'd have to cook dinner for the dinner club too. So it just became a part of what I wanted. I didn't realize it was a career path because at that time there was no cable television. It was a new thing. There was no personal computer. There definitely, I wrote my senior thesis at UK on an Apple IIe with a daisy wheel printer. You know, so it was the dark ages, but such a wonderful time too. And so my tie to food media was Gourmet Magazine. So I got that every month and I read it cover to cover. And when I finished UK, my dad helped me. Two of my friends who went to Dartmouth College on the debate team needed a third roommate in Manhattan. And we packed all my stuff up in a U-Haul trailer, towed it across the Washington Bridge, and I opened up the New York Times and got a job in a restaurant.
Wow.
And I never looked back.
The rest is history. So talk a little bit about that New York experience. Obviously, you met somebody really special there, but tell us a little bit about that, and then coming back to Kentucky.
The first day, well, at that time, in order to go to the Culinary Institute of America, you had to have at least 1 year's experience. They don't do this now. Now I think it's okay if you don't have that experience. But in the time, you could not be admitted unless you'd worked in a restaurant for 1 year. And so on the first day of school, I met my husband, Chris. Of course, I didn't know he was going to be my husband then, but he looked really dashing, I might add. He's tall, and he had, but we just became very good friends. I made some of my best friends at the Culinary Institute of America. And when we graduated, originally, I think we had thought we would return to New York, but Chris asked me to marry him, and my mom just was petrified I was going to try to get married in New York, which I don't know why she thought that, because who could even afford to do that? But but I got a call from my stepfather, his name was Bob Sexton. He was a wonderful man, and he said, "I don't know, Ouita, I'm not sure what your plans are, but please, God, come home for your wedding." And so I said, I did. I moved home ostensibly just to plan a wedding. And I got back to Lexington, and I loved being with my parents. I loved being with my mom. I loved being in Lexington. I had run like hell to get away from it. And I felt connected, and I realized that I wanted to cook for a community where I wanted to help build community. I wanted to be part of a community. I started thinking about how restaurants were part of communities and how they could really help transform and build communities. And I had a little cookbook called The Beaujolais Cafe, and it was the story of this little restaurant in California. I still have that book. And it was just this one young woman's story of her opening her own small restaurant, fell in love with that idea. And Chris came down, he missed me, so he moved down, and we never moved back.
Oh,
that was more than 30 years ago now.
We're so glad you didn't move back.
I am too.
I'm going to break precedent here for just a second. Can somebody from my team turn the air on? It's really hot up here.
These lights are hot.
Are you hot? It's warm, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's like we're in a kitchen, We're in the back. Okay. So you make it back home to Kentucky. What is it about Kentucky cooking that sets us apart? I mean, we have some of the ingredients that are regularly used, but what is it about Kentucky cooking?
I've said a million times there is no Kentucky cuisine without the Kentucky farmer. And we are so lucky in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yay, I'll take that. I will.
Farmers.
And I'll say that bio was a little old that you read, because I think that was written around the time we opened Windy Corner, because it was talking about food chain being new, or it was something around there. But in our restaurant group, we have this new computer that tracks every purchase that we have and all of our sales and everything. You can get it right on your phone. And so I had Tyler, our culinary director, look at it for 2023 for the local food summit, and we purchased $500,000 in 2023 from local farms in farm gate receipts for our company.
That's amazing.
So I feel like we're well over 2 million. I think we're probably closer to like 5 or 6 million at this point in total farm gate receipts. And the thing that makes Kentucky so special is we're fourth in the country in the small family farm, and this is an incredible legacy that we were left because of tobacco. So tobacco was in some ways a negative thing for us because smoking is bad for your health, but in other ways it was a positive thing because it helped solidify and uphold our rural communities and our rural economies. And now those economies are suffering again, and we need to do everything that we can to strengthen the rural experience, diversify the rural experience, and strengthen the rural economy, because that's really what we are as Kentuckians. That's who we are. That's where we came from. And I think that's where our cuisine comes from historically. Now, the neat thing for me is we don't want a food culture that's rooted 200 years ago in the past. We don't want one that's never changing. We want to see it evolve. We want younger generations to take these dishes and move them onto their own tables, into their own friend groups, with their own family members, and really enrich and diversify our food culture. Yeah. And you can see that happening all over Kentucky. And I mean, I could go on and on about that, Jordan. So you just tell me to be quiet.
No, we'll
move on.
It's so inspirational. And I think when I hear about, and I've lived in urban areas and then in rural areas. I also lived in New York for a bit and moved back. So we have that in common too.
Yeah.
But I think that you hear this movement of like locally sourced ingredients. That's lovely, but it's so much deeper than just it came from somewhere down the road. It's about for you, it's about the economy. It's about lifting these farm families up. It's about honoring the land.
Right. Well, I know that I alone cannot make a big difference. I mean, I can make a difference to a couple of families. Like the guy that produces all of our pork and beef, I'm at right now like close to $200,000 a year in annual income for him. Now that doesn't count the cost of his livestock, etc. So, but I know I can make a difference there. But as a chef, I can drive the message is what I'm really trying to do, is to show and demonstrate and preach, to people the necessity of keeping our food dollars in our communities.
Yeah.
And when you don't do that, when you eat at chain restaurants that are not locally owned, or are not sourcing any of their food regionally or locally, your dollar is going to California or to Florida or to wherever the big hub is where they're packaging it and freezing it. And if we want to protect our farmers, we have to buy their food. It's not that complicated, but I understand that there are accessibility issues. We've tried to address that with our casual restaurants. It's complex, I get it. But part of my job and my mission in life is to show people that it's not as hard as you think and that it's fun.
Yeah, I love that. Talk a little bit about your cooking style in terms of the ingredients you use or the process you take as what I would say an artist, as a culinary artist. What are the things that have changed over the years, over time, since you were a student in New York to now?
Yeah.
And maybe what has remained? Like, what are the elements that are truly Ouita that will never change? And then maybe some of the things that have evolved over time for you.
I have a grandmère style, I call it. So I love French food. I love French cooking, and I've never been to France. Go figure. But maybe one day before I die, I'll get there, I hope. It's not a great idea to go into small business and open up a bunch of restaurants if you want to travel the world. Just letting you know, Megan. Just letting you know. But I love, so I was able to study with this amazing woman called Madeline. Her name was Madeline Kamen. She has since passed away. And she was the same age as Julia Child. And they hated each other. They fought. Because Julia Child was famous for saying at one point that French women don't cook. And the name of Madeline's first book was When French Women Cook. Yeah, it was a... Anyway, Madeline was just she was from France, an amazing mentor and teacher. And the things that she was teaching really fell into line with what our farmers grow here. So that style of cooking with what we're growing, to me, it's perfect harmony. So if you think about spoon bread, it's a cornbread souffle when it's made correctly. And it's beautiful with goat cheese and lemon confit. I just got done cooking all that, so I'm thinking of it in my mind. So all of those things really stayed with me. And at the Culinary Institute, it's a very traditional French style way of cooking. But now what I love and what I think is really dynamic in Kentucky is, number one, we are finally telling the story and recognizing the contributions of Black people in this country to our cuisine in the South and all over America.
Absolutely.
And that story was not being told. So Jessica Harris and High on the Hog, if you have not read that book or seen that show on Netflix, you need to do it. It is incredible. The story of James Hemings and how he went to France. First U.S. master chef, African American, enslaved by Thomas Jefferson. Hercules, enslaved by George Washington. They really changed American cuisine. And they brought a lot of that. I mean, James Hemings invented mac and cheese. He was the first person to make it. He brought it here from France. And you think about how ubiquitous that is in the American diet and where that came from. It's just a really exciting story. I love all that, and I love the globalization, that we're experiencing, because I love international food and flavors, and I don't feel it takes anything from the Kentucky tradition. I feel like it enriches the Kentucky tradition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So does that answer your question? So I'm not as traditional. I'm not as traditional as I once was. I was very. When I first started, I would say I was very Frenchy. I really I was really trying. When you're young, you're really trying to learn those techniques and get it just right, and make sure you know it all by heart. And then over time, you start to cook more intuitively. It's the same with art, right? If you're a potter, you got to learn how to work the wheel. And you have to know, if you're a painter, you got to know how to use your brushes and mix your paints correctly. How do you saturate color? You have to know all these techniques before you can get to the point, like we saw upstairs in the gallery, where you can just let it all come out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same way with cooking as well.
I love that. Well, you mentioned something, and a personal anecdote. When I was in Ghana, I studied in Ghana, and I was like, what is familiar about this dish? And then you make the connection that a lot of people who were enslaved were cooking in the Deep South, and a lot of those traditions they brought over from West Africa, and they were kind of inculcated into the Southern style of cooking.
Yes,
certain
absolutely.
Frying and so I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'm glad that people are really paying attention to all those untold stories too in our
we have to reconcile it all, and it's all great.
Absolutely.
It's all part of our culture.
So let's talk a little bit about your favorites in the world of food. So favorite dish.
Oh, I knew you were going to ask this, but it's really hard for me to come up with one, but I'm going to just say cornbread, because I know the range that gets me to. Multiple cornbread, like spoon bread I consider a cornbread.
Yeah.
But I would say from a French cooking standpoint, my favorite dish is cassoulet, and I do that every year at Holly Hill Inn, and I've done that every year for 21 years.
Yeah. Okay, favorite course to prepare.
Well, salad, and we'll talk more about that.
Okay, all right, we'll hold that off until our cooking demonstration. And one last question for you in terms of something that you think is an underutilized ingredient, something that people don't use enough or that they don't recognize.
I'd say sorghum. I mean, all sorghum is molasses, not all molasses is sorghum. And it's one of my favorite ingredients, and I use it in a myriad of sweet and savory ways.
I love that. Well, you're in Danny Townsend country, so we got sorghum.
I love Danny Townsend. He's a good guy. Yeah.
So we love sorghum here. I'm glad you said that. So now we're going to shift a little bit and talk about. I mean, we are in an arts center after all. So let's talk about food as art. And I know we talked a little bit before. Musicians harmonize. Painters seek balance and clarity and form, right? Food, of course, is also an art, and that's why you're here. How do you, a lot of artists and musicians and actors, they experiment with their art form. Yeah. So how do you like to experiment, and how do you know when you got something good?
You got to feel it, for one thing. You know it's good, but the great thing about food as an art form is you can taste it. So you have that immediate experience. But I've always loved cooking as an art form because it engages all your senses. You have to hear. You're completely engaged when you're cooking something great with sight, with smell, with sound. It's all part of your sense of taste. Your sense of taste is really all of your senses together and how they manifest in your brain. And in terms of what you're experiencing in terms of flavor. And that can also create memory. And that's really what I'm trying to do. And I mean, for me, I'm deeply inspired by art, less visual art and more the literary arts for me. So poetry is a deep inspiration for me. We did a series of poetry dinners at the Holly Hill Inn, and Rebecca Gale Howe curated the poems. We did an Ada Limon poem, The Carrying. And so we took Ada's poem and we wrote a menu in the style of her poem, but that was the menu for the night. We did that with Morris Manning's Bucolic 9, I think. And so Bucolic, his poetry is real kind of hard to read. It's kind of crazy in a way. but I like it. And then we wrote a menu in the same way, but it freaked the customers out so bad they wouldn't order their dinner. So we had to write it in regular English as well. But I really do feel that way. Silas House is someone who really inspires me with his writing because it's emotional. Poetry takes you to place.
Yeah.
In Kentucky, poetry literally takes you to place.
Yeah.
So so much of our literary tradition, our literary heroes here in Kentucky are rooted in their land and in their farming history. So that, as a chef, is just sort of a natural inspiration that I love.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So I'm a moderate Top Chef fan. My partner Mark will disagree. He's more of one than I am, I guess. But I saw you, actually, that was the first time I'd eaten at your restaurants, but I hadn't really known who Ouita Michel was until I watched Top Chef Kentucky. And you were a guest judge on there. So that was
a bucket list thing.
Yeah,
I
that's so
loved
amazing.
doing that.
It was great. It was great. So immediate fan, obviously. I was like, this woman's amazing. So, but I think when you watch shows like that, or even if you see fine dining and kind of elevated cuisine, something that I always wonder, and I want your opinion on this, is the style versus substance. What is the best balance? Because I find your food to be elevated, but approachable, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I don't feel like it's always approachable.
I am all substance, baby. I feel like it's all about deliciousness.
Yeah.
So if it's not delicious, it's not good. And it doesn't matter how it looks.
Yeah.
To me, personally.
Right.
But yes, so that's the balance. It's deliciousness.
Yeah.
And we preach that all the time to our young cooks, and they don't always know how to judge deliciousness. I'm not knocking any young chefs here, because I know there are a few, but you cannot be media-led in your inspiration point. Instagram cannot be your inspiration. TikTok cannot be your inspiration. Those are highly edited videos that where the food may or may not be delicious. There's one thing you cannot do on social media, and that is taste anything. You can watch the giant hamburger, and you can look at the cool knife cuts, and and I've seen a million really creative things to do on social media, but you do not know if it's delicious. So it's really important that the only way to really achieve great cooking and great cooking technique is to do it. You can go to school to get a leg up on the technique, but you have to be a practitioner.
Yeah.
And that's, what do they say, 10,000 hours? I think I calculated one time for a talk I was giving, I have something like 200,000 hours in the kitchen over 35 or 40 years. Yeah, it's a lot. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Whatever that means.
So we've talked about food as art.
Yeah.
And I want to shift now to kind of food. We're going to go a little deeper into some of the things you said, but food as nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so much nostalgia in food. And so,
I think the word is memory.
Memory, okay.
Yeah, because, food does make us feel nostalgic, but, so have you read Crystal Wilkinson's praise song for Kitchen Ghosts?
I haven't yet.
Oh, have anybody here read it?
Yeah.
Oh, I highly recommend it. So Crystal is, and this is for me, this is, I don't know if I should tell you this now or during the cooking demonstration. We're going to do a little exercise on food as memory tonight. Oh. That's what we're going to do.
Great.
But yes, I think food is tied to memory, and it's also how we connect with those people that we're not with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, when my grandmother passed away,
yes,
and finding her handwritten recipes
yes,
in the drawer, and that was, those are like a gold mine for our family, right? Because
right,
those are so, it's that taste. Yeah, I can taste it. I read it and I know exactly what that tastes like.
It's her handwriting.
Yeah.
It's her legacy in a
There's
real
so much
solid
love.
way for you.
Yeah. A soul memory. I love that. Yeah. So the magic of recipes or cookbooks, why do you think that resonates with us so deeply? Why is that a soul memory? I'm thinking of church cookbooks, if anybody remembers when a lot of churches used to have a cookbook every year. Mm-hmm. Family cookbooks, if you have a big family and mm-hmm, everybody gets together and writes their, or recipes written down. What is that connection, do you
I have
think?
that little recipe box for my grandmother, and I have my great-grandmother's. I feel for women, it was part of their legacy at the time of what they were going to leave. And there's really great examples of this, like during the Holocaust. There was a recipe, it was a cookbook written by women who were in the concentration camp, and they knew for them it was an act of rebellion to write these recipes down and smuggle that book out, because that was the next generation's connection, and they were investing in the future. So like writing a recipe down is the way to invest in the next person making that recipe. So it's your eyes are on the future. It's such an interesting thing. But, I do love cookbooks. I have 4,000 cookbooks. Oh, God. I love cookbooks. I use them a lot I like specific books. Like I have this book on Gulagichi cooking. I love that because I can read it and I can learn something from a lot of the texts, and I really enjoy that.
Well, and nothing against our internet recipes, but there's something also about holding
the internet. The internet. I'm sorry. The internet sucks in terms of like real culinary research though. Like you can go on there and get the New York Times cooking thing is good. I do subscribe to that. So you can go on there and get a quick recipe if you need one. And sometimes what it's great for is like if I want to write I one time wanted to write a menu about Paris, right? I wanted to be specifically about Parisian cooking. So I have a few cookbooks, but then I was able to go online and actually go to the menus of the top tables in Paris and read the menu. And then that was the source of inspiration. And that's a really cool thing that you can do right now on the internet that I couldn't do when I first got started, which I do love that. Yeah.
It's funny in my family, my mom doesn't cook much because her mom was always saying, "Get out of the kitchen! Don't stand under me while I'm trying to cook. Get out of my kitchen." So I kind of skipped a generation, I think, for our family. But I wonder for you what your favorite memories of cooking are, and maybe if you have a favorite family dish that you want to share.
I do have a favorite recipe that I'm sharing with everybody tonight, and I cherish those times of cooking with my mom. When I came back to Kentucky, it was the best thing I ever did because I lost my mom 10 years ago, and it feels like yesterday. Anybody who has lost their mom, you already know how I feel because you probably feel the same way. They're gone, but it doesn't feel like they're ever gone. And those times as a young adult, planning my wedding, but like cooking in her home, cooking together, having friends over. I see Larry in the back, and many, many times I've cooked for him. I've cooked in his home. He's been in my parents. We've eaten many, many meals together. And is that Charlie and Carolyn back there? Yeah. So Carolyn and Charlie Lindquist, that's a surprise to have them here. But so when I was a teenager growing up, Carolyn is this amazing, amazing, amazing cook. And so she and Larry being friends, I cooked for their wedding. These are memories I would have never had. And I was gonna say, Larry had to cook all the food at my wedding because the guy that was supposed to come from the Dudley's kitchen, I made all the food with my husband Chris for our wedding. And I had one of the line cooks say he was gonna come and grill all the food for us. And he didn't show up. Larry and Charlie had to cook all the food. And so those memories for me, like a lot of those friend and family memories centered around our tables at Carolyn Charlie's, at Larry's, at my mom's and Bob's. And it was just, I wouldn't trade it for anything. They were formative for me. And I wish that kind of conviviality for everyone. Yeah. And I feel like COVID disrupted it intensely. And it's okay to get together now. We all know that. People aren't really afraid. But for some reason, we're still isolating. We're not having folks over, although Paula and Eli had Chris and I over. I really thank you for that. But like, I think that is something that we've lost. How do we bring conviviality back, and not at the restaurant table, not at the Chick-fil-A table, at your own table. And I've really thought about that a great deal. And I feel like I'm teaching a lot of cooking classes right now, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do that. Yeah. To break it down for myself, because it can be a little nerve-wracking, entertaining, and I'm really not a great housekeeper, so it's hard for me to have people over to my house.
Well, I mean, there's a communal, it's breaking bread together. It's all the things that go with that. And that's actually, you led us right into the next section of what I wanted to talk about. How do we bring people back to the table? Because not only is it fun and memory and all these things we've talked about, there's also some data that backs this up. I'm a data geek, so I brought some data. According to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University, kids and teens who share family dinners 3 or more times per week are less likely to be overweight. They're more likely to eat healthier foods. They're more likely to perform better academically on average. They're less likely to engage in risky behaviors, including drugs, alcohol, sexual activity, and they have a better relationship with their parents, family, and friends. So this isn't just
We're not just
feelings, right? This is
Yeah.
real. This is real stuff. So I mean,
It's hard. It's hard for parents.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. My daughter right now is a sophomore in college, so I miss her quite terribly, and I do love cooking for her when she comes home. But it is hard to deliver everything that your kids need in this modern society that we have, because it just feels like it's always in a whirl.
Yeah.
But a lot of that's self-made. We're creating that whirl for ourselves. One of the things I love about cooking is it's time. And the way that I can show the people that I love the most in this world, my husband Chris and my daughter Willa, that I am committed to them, is to give them my time. And a lot of times for us, that's creating a meal. And also something I find great joy in is cooking. I cook every day. And even now Willa's gone, Chris and I cook for one another every single day. He made me saag paneer with chickpeas last night, and a yogurt grilled chicken with basmati rice, and a homemade mango chutney.
Oh, I'm coming to your house.
It's so good. But yeah, he cooks for me when I'm really busy, and right now I'm really busy. Yeah. And then when it slows down for me, I cook for him. Like, when it's payroll and the cash flow's hitting the fan, I'll cook him a good dinner, and that makes him feel better.
I love that so much. Well, we're about to cook, so we're going to all share a special moment together in the kitchen. But before we do that, Ouita, are there any Chef Ouita projects that we need to be on the lookout for on the horizon?
Thank you for asking that. I do have. I've opened a cooking studio in Versailles that I dearly love, and our company now has, as part of our COVID response, and our marketing director Mike Hilton is with me tonight. And Mike and I started working together 3 years ago because we had a dream of making a show. And we're friends. I mean, we knew each other before we started working together. And we've been working on this for 3 years. And we have partnered with a wonderful production company called Macaroni Art. And it's led by Steve Zahn and Rick Gomez. And it's about Kentucky's food culture. We've taped the first 3 episodes. We have 4 episodes. I don't know, 3 or 4. And we tape again in May, and then we'll finish up in July. And I just love it so much. And it's not a cooking demonstration. It's about storytelling, and it's about looking at our food culture in Kentucky and realizing the richness that we have here, and hopefully encouraging all of us to celebrate it with one another a whole lot more than we do. In Kentucky, we have a tendency to eat too much humble pie. It's one of our better qualities, actually. Our humility. It does make it nice to be a Kentuckian, but every now and then we need to tell our own story and celebrate our stories with one another. And that's what the show's about, and it's called You Belong Here. So I'm really excited about that, and it's a great joy to me.
Yeah, when can we expect that? Do we know?
Oh boy.
Are we still?
2025.
Okay, all right.
Everybody knock on wood.
Yeah, okay. We'll be waiting with bated breath. That sounds really exciting.
But until then, we have hollyhillandco.com and a newsletter that we send out every week. We're telling a lot of the stories that we're telling in that show on our website and in this newsletter. So we have articles, we have recipes. We do not do any ads except for our own restaurants. I might add, we do that. But we try to just write about the people we know, farmers, candy makers, other artisans in our area, cheese makers, chefs, and we tell their stories, tell our own story and what we're doing, and it's really wonderful. It's been wonderful. Yes.
Can't wait to see that. Well, we're going to do an audience Q&A after we go over here, and we're going to cook a little bit. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
All right.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what are we making today?
Well, things may have wilted slightly, but I want you all, I think you can see this.
My coffee mug is still here.
Oh. Can you all see this tray? Or do I need to move it a little bit? So we talked about food as memory, and I wanted to do this. I put in each one of your programs a poem that my mom wrote called Salad for Ouita. And for both of... It's in your restroom. Yes, it's in my restroom at Holly Hill Inn. Perfect in the ladies' room, so that when you sit, you can read it. Hey, everybody needs a little poetry everywhere now and then. For me, salad's always like one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite things to make, and it's one of my mom made it always, was my job at every day to make the salad. And this is her salad bowl.
Oh.
And this was her bowl too, which is an incredible.
It's gorgeous, yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And all of these little greens that you say came out of the gardens at Holly Hill Inn. So this is our first spring mix. I just picked all of it yesterday afternoon, so to stay fresh for tonight. And this is red vein sorrel.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Now this is pokeweed. Does anybody know poke salad?
Yeah.
So this was the first poke, and I have a weeded poke garden. I want you to know. I'll show it to you all next time. So you can see I just picked those, and this is sometimes called poor man's asparagus, and you can see why. It looks like, I don't know where my camera is, but it looks like little spears of asparagus, and because we got them right when they were just coming out of the ground, then you blanch it 3 times, and then you can saute it, or you can just dress it and eat it. It's really, really good.
Wow.
You want to try a piece?
Of course.
Have you ever had it before?
Yes, it's been a while, but.
Good. I shouldn't do that with a mic, but.
No.
And then now we have these beautiful these are all pulled right out of the garden. These are French breakfast radishes. And these are the little round ones. Now I can't remember their name, but.
Oh.
Yeah, those are so cute, right? And then we have radicchio that's overwintered. And then this is a bolted kale. And I had a guest at Holly Hill Inn this week. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Erin French from The Lost Kitchen. She has a really wonderful show on the Discovery Network, and she came to Holly Hill Inn because she's visiting Kentucky, and we did a dish. We did spoon bread and local lamb from the Ricketts who are here, Tony and EJ who are here. Yeah. They do all the lamb for Honeywood, and so we did their lamb. And so Erin saw these. This was a little Russian kale plant and loved them, and she says she begs her farmers to let all their plants bolt, and then she goes and gets all the flowers. And these are all edible, and they're really nice to put in your salad as a garnish. So I brought some of those. And spring onions. So all of this came from our garden at Holly Hill.
It's good, trust me.
So I wanted to make, this is my favorite recipe from my mom, this and cobbler. And also I think it's so funny, this is a really amazing coincidence, but I think also you have the recipe for eggplant caviar. That's from Carolyn Lindquist.
Wow.
Every year on my birthday, I got eggplant caviar. And she made me my first cafe au lait and chocolate cheesecake. That's how good she is.
And you didn't know she was coming?
I had no idea. I'm so glad to see her in the audience.
Oh, that's great.
So this is a household Vitamix. So they make big ones too for the restaurant kitchen, but this is just a little one that I use at home, and I really love it. I highly endorse it. I'm not getting paid to say that, but I do like it.
And what is this you're putting in?
This is Dijon mustard.
Oh, Dijon, okay.
And the reason this is not a complicated thing to demonstrate, but I just wanted to show you all the consistency, because it's like a dip. This is a white wine vinegar, because I didn't have any red wine vinegar, so you can use a white wine vinegar. And when you're making a vinaigrette, everybody knows that, hopefully, that you start with all the aromatics, which means the mustard, the vinegar, and all the spices. So this is sugar, salt, and freshly ground black pepper. There, you guys have all the measurements there. I've never measured anything for this salad dressing in my whole life. But, oh, and then these are toasted pumpkin seeds. Now, I know this is a cup because this is a half-pint container. So we'll add those in. And then we're going to give this a good whir.
Okay, I'm excited.
I know. And we'll start to drizzle in the olive oil.
Okay.
And it's going to get super thick. You see how thick and creamy it is?
Yeah.
So it looks like a mayonnaise dressing or sour cream dressing that's vegan and gluten-free and super healthy. Now this is a little bit of water. I'm going to add a little bit in there. That's about right. And that's it.
You just eyeballed that water, I noticed, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I thought about dressing all this stuff, but I think what I want to do, in case people want to try it, I'm going to fill up some of these little containers I brought with the dressing and put my little bowl of greens down there, and you can dip a radish or anything that you might want in one of these little, but Jordan, don't you want to try it first? Here, I'll give you a little.
Yeah, of
What about a
course.
radish? Or is that too crunchy with your mic on?
No, it'll be good.
You don't care.
You'll just have to listen to my crunch. All right. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Actually, I'll taste that. Now, I want to say,
Oh my gosh.
isn't that great?
It is.
And she was really known for this dressing.
I'm gonna double dip. I promise I folded it.
And that's bad. I just got that. So that is for Laura Elizabeth, because that taste of
So good.
her grandmother, it's still here. And that would be so important to my mom, that she would be able to have Laura Elizabeth taste her pumpkin seed vinaigrette.
Oh, that's great.
So we do a lot of her recipes. Thanksgiving, I didn't tell you, is one of my favorite menus to cook, and I make the same exact recipe every menu every year, because I want my daughter and my niece and nephews to know what their grandmother tasted like,
Now,
what her cooking tasted like.
Now, your book, of course, just to,
Sorry.
that's a different show. That's
That's
the
a
after
whole
show.
other show.
So when you were kind of compiling just a few miles south, which we have available in the lobby for purchase if you'd like, with Coffee Tree Books out of Moorhead, when you local bookstores, yes. So when you were writing that, though, I mean, I'm sure you had like a million recipes in your head that you wanted to get in there. How did you have to narrow them down, or were you like, nope, I know what I want?
It was really hard to write the table of contents. I mean, one thing about that book is it took 6 years to write it, and we had all the restaurant-sized recipes. We've made a lot of those recipes in the book, thousands. You can think about it like this. Hundreds of cooks have made those recipes thousands of times. Yes, please.
Before they all take it. You know?
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's a book of all of our, what I call our silver bullets. But getting them ready for the home cook was the trick. So, but we got that done, and through a whole series of testing. And that's why the internet can be bad for recipe development, because they don't test a lot of those recipes. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but if you see one recipe on one blog, you've seen it on every blog. And I'm like, is there one blog writer and they just like write multiple blogs? Because who knows, it's possible, because the content never changes.
Right. And it loses a lot of its specialness, right?
Well, there's ads popping up every minute.
Right.
But I have enjoyed some of them, so I shouldn't be so. But yes, so it was hard to write the table of contents. I knew we wanted to focus on the casual restaurants, mainly because I wasn't ready to write the Holly Hill Inn story yet. And I'm trying to get there. Now it's a question of time, but I'll get there before I'm all done.
You're not busy, are you?
Yeah.
Well, how about we, so this will be available afterward. You can come up and have a taste.
Yeah, we'll put it right down here.
And do we want to do this now before we do our Q&A? Okay.
Yeah, so I was telling you that so one of the things that we do on our Holly Hill & Co., website is we have a little store there, and we want everything that we do to be something we've either made or that's really Kentucky. And so this is the first time we've ever done our cheddar wafers, and we've served these every year at Derby for 23 years, and I love those. And then our candied pecans, sometimes we call those cocktailers if you have it with a ham biscuit. Where's Ellen? She was talking about ham biscuits earlier. So, and then we do our corn cookies and our sorghum crinkles, and of course we have Ruth Hunt bourbon balls in here. They say Holly Hill on the top, but they're Ruth Hunt. They say Ruth Hunt on the side. I think manufactured by Ruth Hunt Candy. So the best bourbon balls in Kentucky, I think.
Yes, I agree.
So that's traditional for Derby, all of those flavors and those ingredients, and we're giving it away to somebody.
We're going to give it away to somebody, right?
Yeah.
So if you will get your programs out, and on your insert with Ouita's poem, someone has 5 stars.
Or 3 stars.
Oh, wait, I think, did he add 5?
Did he add 5?
Oh, he added 5.
Oh, thank God, you went up to 5.
The average score of Holly Hill Inn. If you have 5 stars on your
It should be on your
poem,
little poem. Oh, here, we have the winner here.
here's the winner. Come on up.
Basket. Yay!
All right.
That's excellent.
Yay. Would you like to
Yes,
share that with
awesome.
them?
Thank you, Dawn.
Congratulations.
Yeah, my pleasure. Enjoy that. Drink a mint julep with it.
All right. Well, thank you
Yay.
for that, Ouita. That was great. We're going to go do a Q&A if you don't mind.
Sure,
So,
yes.
all right. Well, now we're going to open it up to the audience. We have time for a few questions for Ouita. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Yes.
Is the show that you are filming Steve's on, is it going to be on PBS or where is it going to be?
So if you can't hear the question,
Where
is
is
the
it going to
show
platform?
going to?
I think that remains to be seen. I think there are multiple places that they're considering right now. That part is unfortunately not my, or fortunately I think, not my purview. But yes, we're working with their agents, so we have a really good representation on the show. And I think it's going to be, I've seen the first episode is about horse culture and its impact on our food culture, because a lot of times we don't think about it that way. And we told it through the lens of Fasig-Tipton, which is a big horse auction facility, through the kitchen door.
Yeah.
So it was really fun.
That's great. And that's such a long, drawn-out process with production companies and figuring all that
Yeah.
out. It's a long.
Yes.
I don't envy you.
Requires a lot of patience.
Other questions for Ouita? Yes. We have a mic for you. Oh, I don't know if the mic is on. Hold on just a second.
Hold that thought.
We're recording, so we want your question for posterity.
Okay, now you can say it.
All right, awesome. So my brother-in-law and I cannot eat red meat, which really sucks living in Kentucky. And so
Or anywhere.
I know that it is a staple in so many recipes. Do you have any advice for something we can sub out? Because there are certain tastes you can't replicate, but
Especially for smoked pork,
right.
which like if you're doing the soup beans and stuff like that. Can you eat turkey or, so smoked turkey necks are really great, and smoked turkey wings for you to use as a seasoning meat in an old-fashioned way really does work well. I don't love turkey bacon, but I've had it. I mean, it's fine. But I also really recommend one thing that I started doing, and it was from this book called the Bar Tartine. And the thing about that book is they're fabulous on their pantry recipes. So they do like charred onions, dehydrated and ground for a charred onion sprinkle, and like doing smoked tomatoes and smoked onions, smoked and charred carrots. Anything where you can mimic the technique of what was used for the protein that you can't eat will really add a lot of flavor and a lot of layers of flavor into a dish like that, especially the charred onions, and you can just do that in a cast iron skillet on the stove. But I do love smoking vegetables, really love that. That's a great question. We're doing more and more vegan cooking, and it's, the more we can really eat high quality meat and eliminate cheap meat from our diet, focus on really well raised livestock, and then every try to eat as much plant-based diet as we can through the week, keep our meats small. It's going to be good for all of us.
I was going to ask what you thought about like Beyond Meat.
I don't love that. I have friends who are vegan who don't like vegetables, and I'm like, that does not compute with me. I'm like, I love vegetables. I'm a meat eater. I love meat. I like everything, fish, meat, vegetables.
Right.
But to me, it's all about balance, and the vegetables are like, it disappoints me so much when you go to a restaurant and the only vegetable is like a house salad or broccoli or something like that.
Yeah. Because
we live in a state where we're growing incredible. I mean, I picked that in 5 minutes out of my backyard in Holly Hill Inn.
Yeah.
So it's really cultivate for yourself, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions? We have time for a couple more. Here we are. Hold on just a second, we'll get you a mic.
Hey, Chef.
Hi.
So, as a woman in this industry, and the industry being historically male-dominated, I kind of wanted to know what your personal journey was like being a female chef and starting all of the projects and all of the accomplishments that you have had.
Well, thank you for that question. So, honestly, New York City was really exciting. It was really challenging. The Culinary Institute at that time, there was only 1 in 4 students was a woman, so it was about 25%, 20 to 25% women. Now it's 50-50. So women have really come on in the culinary industry. In fact, probably, I think may be a little bit more female dominated now than it has been in the past. It was dicey at times. My first job in Lexington was at Dudley's, in the old Dudley's location, and I love Debbie Long. She's a good friend of mine, and she's been a great role model because she's a powerful small business owner. Her restaurant is I think at least 40 years old, potentially older than that, and so she's been doing it a long time, and she was really good to me. I was her sous chef for 3 years. But that kitchen, I mean, I had in that old building, it was a challenge because a lot of times I was the only woman on the line. It was an extremely busy restaurant, a hot environment. My other line cooks were all great, but like they would fight. I had to break up fights. I remember locking guys into the walk-in until they could cool off. It was like the Wild West down there. But Debbie always had my back. But yeah, it's always a challenge. I was raised by a woman who just did not accept any of that. And I laugh because I knew the day my mom and dad were going to get divorced, my mom came home for textured soy protein and falafel mix. And my dad said, "What the hell is that?" No, she was a wonderful cook, but she was a really powerful person. And so just from a very young age, I was just never thought about it a lot. But I really, really, really try to make sure there's pathways for everybody in my company, and for women, for people of color, and we have a lot of women managers, GMs, and Hannah Arvin is the current chef de cuisine at the Holly Hill Inn, and she's killing it. Makes me very happy. And her sous chef's Victoria. I should know Victoria's last name, but it's blanking on me now. So we have 2 women leading the kitchen at Holly Hill right now, and they're doing a great job.
I think it's so wonderful to have you as kind of this, what people would think kind of on the forefront of Kentucky cooking and culinary arts, and being that advocate for young chefs coming up.
Yeah,
so
we have an event
amazing.
For food chain called Feast, Food Equity and Access Sustains Tomorrow. And it's May 22nd, and it's 30 women from around the Central Kentucky community and the state cooking, and some women from out of the state who are friends of mine, all cooking dishes. And the reason we did that was so that we could create a network for young women in Central Kentucky to meet these powerhouse chefs from all around the country. And just to, it's called the Good Old Girl Network. It was the Good Old Boy Network for a while. We got our own.
I love that. That's great.
You can come to that. Please, I've got 2 young women chefs in the audience tonight, Stephanie and Megan. And come to that event. Feast Eve is the event that you need to come to. That is Tuesday, May 21st at Food Chain. You don't have to have a specific invitation. It's women from all over who'll be there. in any aspect of food and beverage. So it'd be really nice to have you.
I'll be there.
Yeah, come. You'll be there because of
will.
Babs. Yes.
Yes.
Megan, you should come. You promise me? Okay.
We have time for one more question. One more burning question. Not burning food, a burning question.
Dr.
Yes.
Roberts has one.
Dr. Roberts.
Ouita, you mentioned that farmers and local ingredients are what make Kentucky food, I think. And you mentioned spoon bread. But what is it about, what makes it Kentucky? What makes it, what is that essence that makes you realize you're home?
I feel like when recipes have been passed, one of the things that I think that is really lovely at this point in my career is to think about the multiple times I've passed a recipe down and received a recipe. And sometimes it's, so for example, spoon bread, I've made that thousands and thousands of times. I've passed that to many, many young cooks. Cornbread, and I can make you a pan of cornbread that will take you to a place in your childhood, and that's common ground for both of us. And so those old recipes, while we can't stay there and we can't make them exclusive and we can't be, we can't judge people for not making it the way we did, et cetera, they can provide common ground for us. And those are the recipes I'm always seeking to find. And what I think is exciting, so you've got that provenance creates a bridge between people. Yeah. And at the same time, if you can use a recipe and then change it, like mint jelly with lamb. Mint jelly has been served with lamb in Kentucky for, 150, 200 years probably. It's apple jelly with mint. At some point, they stopped putting the mint in, strained it out, and added green food coloring, whenever green food coloring became available to us. But I really dislike green food coloring. I also hate it in Benedictine, by the way. But so I wanted to create a fresh green mint sauce for a local leg of lamb and used instead like fresh apple juice, honey, tons of mint from my garden, and then I thickened it with xanthan gum. And that doesn't sound so great. But it ended up being this beautiful, brilliant green, frothy mint sauce with a little bit of substance to it. And xanthan gum is all natural. It comes from fermented cabbage. But that's kind of what Kentucky food means to me. In terms of a dynamic way, how do we keep it dynamic and moving forward so that people don't decide, I hate that mint jelly because all it is green food coloring and high fructose corn syrup and pectin, So it's always about distilling things to their natural essence. Sometimes that means something is so old it's new again, but very frequently, like soup, beans, and cornbread, we've sold, I wonder how, Wallace Station's 20 years old last year, and soup, beans, and cornbread has been on its menu for 20 years. When we put it on that menu, nobody in a restaurant served soup, beans, and cornbread. It's the iconic dish of Kentucky.
Yeah.
To me, it sets a table around which Black Kentuckians, white Kentuckians, rich Kentuckians, poor Kentuckians, we can all sit. So that's why it started on that menu. Then we moved it to Wendy, but I just wonder, hundreds of thousands of gallons? I don't know. But it's an interesting, now you're starting to see it everywhere, which makes me really happy, by the way, because it means that it's, again, part of our food culture in a way where we were moving away from it for a while. Dr. Roberts, did that answer your question at all? You know I can talk a river. I will.
I feel like you could answer that one all night, for sure, yeah.
It's not like a coastal cuisine, or it's not
No.
identifiable in a way of special flavors or some kind of special dish. But there are special dishes.
Yeah.
I think the thing that sets us apart in Kentucky, beyond, I think if you're asking what's the difference between Kentucky and West Virginia and Maryland and the Carolinas, et cetera, one, it's our farming, it's our agrarian culture around literary arts, our craft, around the pottery, et cetera. I think all of those add to the richness. And there's one thing too about Kentucky and Kentucky's food that makes it amazing is its storytelling. So you think about Sissy Gregg, Camille Glenn, incredible food writers. For those of you who maybe have not read their books, you should get a copy of the old Courier Journal cookbook to read all of Sissy Gregg's recipes. If you haven't ever heard of Camille Glenn, she was the Julia Child of Southern cooking. Both of them wrote for the Courier Journal for decades. They defined Southern food writing, and they're Kentuckians. Thomas Clark wrote extensively about Kentucky food. John Edgerton wrote extensively about wrote the Bible on Southern food, lived in Lexington, wrote and researched all about Kentucky food. Duncan Hines from Kentucky. We have these iconic people that have written and told the story of Kentucky foods in ways that other states do not enjoy.
Ouita Michel.
So yeah, well, I'm happy to be part of that lineage a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to kind of tie all this back together. Food is culture. I mean,
Yes.
Food is poetry, food is storytelling, and you personify that in so many
Thank
ways
you,
for
Jordan.
us. And so we really appreciate you being here tonight.
was my honor.
We want to give you a gift from your friend Larry.
Oh, gee.
You can't leave Mount Sterling without some Ruth Hunt. So thank you, Larry, for that.
Thank you, Larry.
Everybody, don't forget, I feel like I'm on a talk show. Don't forget to buy her book out in the lobby afterward. And she'll also be signing copies if you didn't get one signed by her already, just a few miles south. And don't forget to come up on stage and
Yeah.
try some of our food. So
Try the
everybody,
pumpkin seed dressing.
well, let's give her one last round of applause. Ouita Michel. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
All right, well, we'll head off this way. You can turn your mic off.
Oh, yeah.